This is Dana Samuelson with the American Gold Exchange. You're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast with Mike Cavagioni.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash the like and subscribe buttons. If you're listening to our podcast, go leave us a 5-star review. All of our links can be found in the video description or show notes below.
Welcome back to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Schultz, the Money Life Coach. And today our guest is Christian Osgood. He's the owner of Multifamily Strategy. He has over 200 rental units, and I just am super excited for him to share his story with you guys today. So welcome, Christian, to the podcast.
Let's go. Thank you so much for having me on. This is going to be fun. I'm really excited to share.
Yay. Awesome. He's joining us from Texas today. And yeah, I just want to jump right into it and go into telling us your story and how you got to where you're at today.
It's so fun to hear you say joining you from Texas. I finally made it to Texas. That was my original goal. Actually, going back to the beginning, I started as a Dave Ramsey's person. 99% of podcasts, people are like, I read the book by Rob Kiyosaki, and I didn't get to start with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I actually started with Save Your Way to Financial Freedom. So I did college, got a degree in business, went into a 8-year sales career where I saved, bought 4 rental units, 2 duplexes in my house, got the cash flow to where the rentals exactly covered the mortgage. Like it was almost dollar per dollar. My real estate was paying for my real estate. Mm-hmm. With a decently high income job. I was like, this is pretty cool. My real estate is technically now free to me. Yeah. As long as I stay occupied, which I was at the time. But then I looked at, I never actually took the time to set my goals. And so I sat down with my wife, and this is right after, this is like in 2020. So at the time, she's teaching kindergarten over Zoom in a really low income area. So a lot of families have 8 kids. Their kindergartners are trying to figure out how to learn over Zoom. It was a mess. So we had all the political mess in teaching in Seattle. On top of that, as we come back from teaching, she gets a back injury. In this whole setting goals time, I was like, what do we actually want to do? And the first goal became urgently, I'm going to retire my wife. What does that actually cost per month? And so I got out of this mindset of, hey, I need to keep saving to become richer at some point. This kind of vague, hey, when I buy rentals, I have more money. To, okay, I need to build my business to where my wife can stop teaching and we're financially fine. And I also would love to stop doing what I'm doing. I don't want to sell forever. I hate cold calls.
Yeah.
I want to get off the phone. I want her to get out of teaching. And on top of all that, it would be really fun. 5 years into marriage at the time, or 4 years into marriage, we'd love to start a family. I didn't want to do that in Washington. So I was like, boy, we have a lot of goals actually, and they're really expensive. And I can't do this one house or one duplex at a time because I don't want to wait another 8 years to have the house, family, get her out of teaching. We want to do all this sooner.
Yeah.
Around that time, there's a guy in my office. His name's Cody Davis. He was one of my first ever business partners. I've had several since then, but he was at the time 21 years old. He had his only job was working at Safeway, the supermarket, for 24 minutes before quitting. So he'd never had a W-2. He had 30 apartment units by the time he was 21. He bought his first one at 19. So I'm like, you have no money. You have no friends and family with money. How did you pull this off? And talking to him, he's like, oh, I got someone to seller finance me a deal, 90% seller finance. I just had to find the last 10%. And as he's explained this, I'm like, this is so simple. So I had done this whole thing where I worked really hard. I saved up. I bought my own properties. And he came in and did the same thing without saving up, without doing all the work, without doing the sales job. He came in and just started with buying the properties, which got me on the whole adventure. I'm like, oh, wait a second. If you want to be an investor, all you have to do is invest in a property. You can figure out that piece. You don't have to necessarily add all the steps of school and job and savings. Not that savings don't have a place, but that's the beginning of my journey. As I started with a few rentals, I really figured out what my goals were. And now here I am in my house in Texas. You guys were like one of the first people in my new studio, so welcome.
So
And
cool.
yeah, that brings us to today.
Brings us to today. Man, I have so much more to dig into there, but I want to go back real quick because it sounded like you had a good foundation in place. You had the principles that most people are starting to figure out of saving and not having all this like consumer debt. You know what I mean? How did you go from even getting into that mindset of buying multifamily properties? Because you're like, yeah, I went to college, blah, 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 and then I bought 4 properties and then or multifamily. What was your process like to get to there? And then we'll go from there. But I want to know.
I always was interested in real estate. And if you talk to anyone, real estate is not passive income. It's a tax designation. It's a type of money. Real estate is a fairly active business. If you have any interest in being a good landlord, if you're a slumlord, you could passively have terrible properties and be awful. But generally speaking, real estate's a fairly active business to be in. No matter how you structure it, it's a good deal of work. I initially liked the idea of, okay, as I own more stuff, there's more rental income. As the rental income comes up, that's income I get to keep. It was a business that I could understand how you scale.
Mhm.
And I would drive around. And if you've ever done this before, you look around at all the buildings you pass when you drive. And I just had this epiphany when I was a teenager. I was like, someone owns every single one of these. Like every building, there's an owner of. Someone's making money here. And I get excited with architecture and design, and I find every nuance of real estate exciting. I love the niche that I'm in. So for me, just driving around being like, okay, this makes sense. People make money in buildings. Every building has an owner. There's more buildings than anyone could buy. This is technically infinitely scalable.
Mm-hmm.
This is the game that I want to play. I knew I wanted to do real estate as my business for a long time. I think what a lot of people think incorrectly is, oh, I'm just going to go invest in properties and it's going to magically make me rich. If you want to be in real estate, it is competitive because there is a lot of money in real estate. It's ridiculous. It's the largest market cap there is. Real estate, tons of money.
Yep.
Moving around. So if you're going to be in it, it's okay. I want to be good at specifically this. That's when I decided real estate. I bought a couple rentals, found some things I liked and didn't like, managing tenants, writing leases. Who do I want to lease to? How much do I want to scale? But for me, I think the big change between, hey, buying a few units and buying a lot of units was like, what is the size of the goal? You talked about financial freedom and debt management. I've always been anti-personal debt. Outside of the mortgage on my house, like I own my cars, I don't like using debt.
Yeah.
I found a business where I'm like, I can responsibly use debt. And I think you're going to be interested in a lot of this, which we'll go into. But the principles that I have for how I buy real estate are super simple, but they're super strict. I buy everything the same way on principles. So if you're going to use debt, how are you not going to implode? Because we've all seen tons of people start in real estate and then lose the real estate and then start over. And I don't want to build financial freedom twice.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And because there's that lot of risk, and especially when now we can get into the seller financing piece and how you were able to scale, especially in the past 3 years, which is really interesting. But how do you go into like your principles on that and how you've made it not as big of a risk for you to do it that way and how you figure that out?
So I had an early mentor who was actually like, he was the perfect mentor on how not to do business. Business ethics, terrible. Business acumen, also low. So I got to learn a lot of stuff about how not to do real estate. However, he was amazing at creative finance and he had the ability to raise money for anything, which again, you pair that with bad ethics, that's actually like pretty dangerous mix. But the way that person's mind worked, I learned so much about how to move money into opportunities. I remember sitting in the office thinking, if this guy could stop losing real estate, he would be so rich. Because you buy real estate, you hold it for a long time, values go up, and then you become very wealthy only if you hold it.
Yeah.
So the entire model for buy and hold is you have to be able to both buy and hold. That's not rocket science. What does holding actually entail? And so we broke that down into, okay, if every deal we purchase cash flows positively from day one, every time I close on a deal, my income goes up. Now, if it negative cash flow, say you had $2,000 of expendable income, I had these deals that have a bunch of great future value, but they bleed $500 a month. I can afford to buy 4 deals. If every one of those deals, say it only cash flowed $1, I can afford infinite deals. So I'm like, okay, First thing for scalability, don't buy deals that lose money day one. Lock in cash flow. Funny enough, this was before interest rates spiked in real estate, but it's always been, if we're going to set it up, we need long-term debt. If we're going to buy it with debt, I don't want to change the expenses. So long-term and fixed rate debt. So now if I'm buying everything on cash flowing, long-term fixed rate debt, every time I close for a long period of time, my income has increased. I bought myself time. When interest rates spiked, did not affect anything about my business. My 10, 15, 30-year debt did not change. So interest rates went up and I went, I guess that's a bummer. I guess I can't do a massive cash out refinance. I guess we'll just keep accepting the checks until the market changes again. It's a structure that was really simple, and a lot of it was made possible by seller finance and other creative finance, where we actually get to modify the interest rate.
Yeah. And so how do you find the people to seller finance? Like, how do you go about finding those deals and structuring that? I'm sure it's probably different for different deals, but like, how does somebody go about doing that?
I love this because this is applicable to any business. It doesn't even have to be real estate. The easiest way to do anything, roughly speaking, there's almost nothing that you want to do that someone else hasn't already done. Yes, there's a few things, like there weren't people like re-landing rockets when Elon Musk did that. But if you're not trying to refigure out rocket science, for the most part, anything you want to do has already been done by other people. Find the people who've done the thing you want to do and learn from them.
Okay.
It was really easy to do for real estate because real estate's public information. I go to Google Maps for free. I click on the larger roofs in residential areas. They tend to be multifamily, which is what I buy. And I just look up who owns this. When I started with the 2 duplexes, I was calling people with 20-unit buildings, 12-unit buildings. It was really up to 50 units in the market that I was trying to buy in. And I was calling not as a buyer. I was calling saying, hey, I just bought a property down the street from you. I have this duplex. I'm trying to retire my wife. I realized I can't do it one duplex at a time. You have this 20-unit building. How did you do that? And people are used to being blown up with sales calls. You get a lot of, I'm not selling it. It's like, perfect. I don't have any money. I spent it all in the duplex. I couldn't buy it if I wanted to, but I do want to know how you scaled to that. Did you just start with a lot of money, or did you find a path to, like, what was the actual pathing to get into larger multifamily? Most people don't start there. And that sparked a lot of conversation for people saying, hey, you discovered something that it took me 10 years to discover. I wish I was buying bigger buildings. And you get in these conversations, you go out for coffee, you might hop in their truck and drive around their portfolio. But the people who I ended up buying from in the future are the same people who taught me how to use creative finance, who drove me around their portfolios, who connected me with their property managers, their lawyers. They've already built the business. Those people showed me how to build my business, and over time gave me some of their business on customized terms. The relationships are everything, especially if we're talking about seller financing. You tend to seller finance to people that you know and trust. And so the relationship game was everything in being able to get the terms that we got on the portfolio that we built.
That's amazing. So I want to touch on 2 things there for people listening. Like, the coaching piece of me is like your curiosity around not thinking like, oh, I know this, or I'm going to figure it out, which you figured out on your own, but like you went to the people already doing it, like people ahead of you. And that's, even when you're going into coaching with somebody, it's always like looking to the person who's even a little bit further ahead of you. Like, how did you get there? How are you doing it? Which is what I help people with. And then what's interesting is you were using your sales. Isn't it interesting? Are you using your sales, what you learned in sales, essentially at your original job, to like using a lot of those skills to then build what you built now, which is, I love like how things come full circle and you're like, whoa, like all those skills help me with what I'm doing.
I worked for the CoStar Group for a long time. They own apartments.com, homes.com. They've just done like a ton of, I guess they decided they want to take out Zillow now. So they just did a ton of ads for that. But they own basically the internet for real estate data. And I worked for them for a long time. And the mission in that company, when I made a call to an owner of real estate or a bank or a property manager, the mission was to book a meeting, lunch, coffee, whatever. I just took that one for one into what we do. It's okay. The mission is to call people and get in front of them face to face for coffee. And if I can do a success rate of 1 person per week, I will meet 52 people in my market who've done something I want to do every single year. It would be ridiculous because that's not a lot of work. That's 10 phone calls, maybe 3 people answer, 1 person says yes. Like it's almost no work adjacent. For very little effort, I can meet with one person for coffee. I like coffee. I have time on Saturday to get coffee. It's not, of all the jobs that I've had, I didn't want to create another stupid sales job. I wanted to create something that was, again, it's not no work, but it's adjacent to passive income.
Yeah.
The acquisition side is really easy. It's meeting with someone for coffee every single week, sometimes even two someone's. 52 to 100 people in a year meet with you, hear what your goal is, teach you something valuable. I never have to ask someone to sell a deal. And I think this works for anyone. If you've communicated well and asked great questions to a lot of people, it's implied that you're a buyer of any business because you've communicated what you're trying to do. If they resonate with you, they'll probably try to help you out. What I love about business is if you don't have the resources, borrow theirs.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. How did your mindset, you explained a little bit of your mindset, but that's a big mindset shift you made. And what we're discussing before we hopped on or started recording was your level of goals, like changing your goals and your reframe on what you were trying to accomplish with your initial couple of properties to where you're at now. What was that experience like, or walk our audience through what you were trying to figure out with?
I just did the math on this too. So I think most people do this. I did not actually have a clear direction of where I was going. I don't think I'd ever sat down and taken an intentional hour. I did this for 1 week. It literally only took 1 week to figure out the whole mindset thing, 1 hour a day. But average person lives like, I think it's 77.5 years. It maths out to about, I think it's 4,030 weeks. Some math people, you can fact check me on that. I think that's right. 52 times 77.5. It's somewhere in that realm. Over 4,000 weeks. Most people go all 4,000 without actually taking a week of mindfully deciding, where do I actually want to end up? I spent a week just being like, I'm going to quietly sit in a sauna and just think quietly about what I want to do. And this was, again, conveniently, this is in 2020, so all of us had more time to sit home and think than we do right now. I won't say the words so we don't get censored. But it was a certain time in history where a lot of us were at home. I spent the time thinking, what does it actually mean to hit my goals? And so we went, okay, retire the wife. She just got injured. This is the most important thing. I also would like to get out of my job and do my own thing. And I want to build the house. Then we just reverse engineered it. What is the actual monthly payments? It would take one to get there. How much do I make right now passively? Well, right now I make $24,000 a year. I make about $2,000 a month in passive income with 4 units. I probably need to support the mortgage for the new house, to put a little aside for travel, to start a family. $15,000 a month should be a little bit in excess of what I would realistically need to hit all of my goals and have extra at the end. And so that was the target. I'm like, okay, we need to keep buying until we're at 15,000 a month. Now I ended up blowing past that because the fun thing is when you hit goals, you got to set new ones. The difference, I took 8 years to get to 4 rentals, wandering towards, I want more money. Like it was just a general, like to be a better provider. When I actually set a clear goal and I'd thought about it and just visualized in my head, okay, what does it look like if I'm there? I'm like, that's amazing. Let's pursue that. I set a goal. Hey, I want to retire my wife in 2 years. In 11 months, I'd retired her and myself. Like I'd left.
Wow.
I am not about get rich quick, but the difference between I'm going somewhere and I know exactly where I'm headed, I did make a lot of money relatively quickly. And I think it is just okay, what is the goal and what's the simplest path from A to B? And as I started on that, things kept working. I was like, So piece of advice for anyone, if you're going to be around for 4,000-ish months, or weeks, sorry, 4,000-ish weeks, you should probably choose 1 or 2 of those where you sit down and plot your course. It has helped move me forward immensely. Then when you go out and you find other people who've done what you wanted to do, a lot of these people built their real estate portfolios over 50 years. Their work allowed me, because you interview all of them, I was able to compress time. I got to borrow their experience, where it's not get rich quick. I got wealthy off of 50 people's 50 years of experience. There's a lot of time that went into what worked, but it was taking the best and the worst from all their strategies and applying what we learned. And when you only come at it as a student, you're not salesy. It doesn't feel like a sales job. And you get like experienced people on your team. It's been an amazing experience. And I'm like, wow, I think this is the way to play any business, is just take the time that others have invested, be a student, and just apply it. You can compress time immensely, which has been really fun.
Yeah. That whole reverse engineering part is really important. And that's what I help people do in my coaching too. It's what's the goal? But it is interesting, right? I think getting super clear and specific. And I think either people have no goals or too general of goals, or they have too many goals is what I see initially. And so they're trying to save, invest, save for the kids' college. Like they have like too many goals, or they have, save more money. You know what I mean? It's one, pay off debt. And you're just like, but what? Going deeper with the why and then getting really clear on what that is. I think that's huge.
And it's so rare. I imagine you get this occasionally in your coaching business. Do you ever get someone who just communicates like the most clear goal ever? And you're just like, I am so sure you're going to hit that.
Yeah.
Like you can hear it immediately when you've practiced this before.
Yeah.
You hear someone communicate, I want to do this. Why do you want to do it? Because of X and Y. How long is this going to take? I'm going to get here within the next 3 years. I'm like, wow. Yeah, you're probably going to do that.
Yeah, because in coaching too, you also have to be like, it has to be something that you really want and desire, right? You have to have that drive with it and towards it and the reason why. But definitely more people than not don't have clarity and don't really know, why do I want to make more money, or what does it mean for me to buy this house or whatever. And going deeper with your past with money and understanding how you grew up with money and how you want to change that dynamic and why, like not ending up in retirement. Like some of my family is right now, like having to still work part-time in a job that they don't want to work at, like not being able to travel and do the things they want to do, like really getting like going deeper. And I think with wanting to provide for your wife, I'm being able to, like, you saw her struggle and really want to be like, I want to be able to help support her in this way. And then also help myself and then now help my future. But what are your goals now? Like now that you've reached that goal, now what do you focus on?
Oh, isn't that funny? So I've been hesitant to share all of my next goals because I technically haven't hit the start a family. I shared with you before this, but we're 40 weeks and 3 days pregnant with the first. So I can't speed that up. We're 3 days past due.
Yeah, can't control that timing.
We are very imminently about to hit that one. In fact, the hospitals let us know by Friday we are hitting that one, or they're going to make it happen. So no matter what, this week, the fatherhood goal will happen. That will end cycle one of all of the goals. I am absolutely against people buying stupid stuff. I think there's way too much of that online.
Yeah.
Part of the way we got to where we're at, my wife and I still share the same one car because we both work from home on our companies. I have one car, Tesla Model Y. It's a decent car, right? But it's not an expensive car.
Yeah.
We don't have nice watches. We don't have stuff. The one thing that was important to us, I love having a big house. Never had it in my life. I've always wanted it. We have a freaking huge house down here. It's amazing. It is absolutely unrealistically large. I love it. It's really fun. I retired her. I get to work on my own companies, on my own projects. I have a property management company. Multifamily Strategy is like my main thing. I build my portfolio, but we get to work from the home that we built. It is a really cool thing. The next steps for me is we actually did, amazingly, we hit financial freedom. Like we did the thing. The next step for me, I have so much fun on the coaching side, and I'm super, super competitive. And I see, especially in real estate, but in almost every industry, there are two groups. There are operators, and then there are marketers who are selling courses or doing whatever. And a lot of the courses out there or the communities are set up in a way where it's just a money grab for online gurus. I love being an operator. I love seeing people's success. It's fun for me to get to hop to other towns around the country. Yeah. People come to my events and be like, hey, I saw your YouTube video a while ago on multifamily strategy. And since then I've bought a duplex, my first 8-plex. One of them was seller finance. Like that piece is so fun to be a part of, the community building. Really my next goal is, okay, we've had 2,000 people come through multifamily strategy. My next goal is how do we get 10,000 people to come through there and track more success and have, like, I want to grow that company to 5 times what it is because it is so freaking fun. And I want to compete with those stupid online, look at my yacht, also buy my course people. It's
oh
like,
my God.
I know. There's so much of it. There's
It's
so much of it out there still The first person I ever saw do that was like Ty Lopez back in the late 90s. And I'm like,
Yep.
how is this still working?
Yeah, Ty Lopez was like one of the initial guys. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that's like your other reason why for being able to help other families be able to do the same for them too and be able to find that freedom. And I love that you focus on also like not being a slumlord, as you said earlier, like the low income housing side and providing for people who rent and everything is keeps going up and being able to provide that opportunity. Like, how did you, obviously, besides the real estate side of it, is there something from your past that you think that's why that you're so passionate about that specifically?
Well, it is interesting. Funny, it has nothing to do with it. I've been homeless before. So I remember there was a time where I was like, boy, if I could get a truck, I could sleep in the back and that would be better. I've had no money.
Wow.
But funny enough, that has nothing to do with my motivation for low income housing came up by accident. I like consistency and I like stability and I like efficiencies in business. And with real estate, what I keep finding, especially in smaller towns, is there's a lot of owners who have a lot of units who are not good managers. So you end up with people who do have slummy properties, who have bed bugs in units.
Yeah.
And it was stuff where I'm like, this is easy to fix. It's actually easy to compete in this area. I ended up buying about 100 studios in the portfolio of a couple hundred units, but there's a point where I had about 100 studio apartments. So it's just kitchen, single units, economic, small units. We'd fix them up really nice. And the nice thing with those too is you can make them all look similar. So you come up with a look and you pretty cost effectively get them very nice.
Right.
Worked with housing authorities, start placing people. And I was like, wait a second, we keep making a bunch of money keeping these under market rent. We're leasing to people who need it. We're doing a good thing in our community. We're fixing buildings. We're repairing neighborhoods. And then what happens is when I buy 4 side-by-side buildings and I fix them all up and I clean up the neighborhood and people on government assistance can still rent there in a place they're proud to live, the values of all the properties go up. And so what I found is we can do a good thing. We can feel amazing about our impact on a community. I can renovate and all I have to do is find units where it's say rents at $550. A lot of people are on government support there and the government's willing to pay $850. I can buy that building. The government pays the delta. The tenant doesn't, like Section 8 housing or Section 42 housing. They're on government assistance programs.
Yeah.
Their payments are fixed. I found places where I literally buy it, inform the government that the rent has gone up. Our tenants don't notice or feel it at all. They sign a new lease. The government pays the delta. We have more income. The building's worth astronomically more. Then the neighborhood cleans up. And it's, oh, we made a lot of money fixing a problem that the community had. And now there's no bed bugs. There's no rats. There's no drug tenants. The druggies are the hard one. That one's a little bit more gnarly than fixing bed bugs. But we take on some of the harder projects and we make these buildings really nice. We bought enough of them where we can do them at scale. But in addition to all of that, where it's a good thing, you can make a lot of money, it's very consistent. Low income housing, there's always a need for it. Like in a down economy, Class A buildings, your super nice places, people can move out of luxury spaces and be perfectly fine in a Class B general location. Like you can move down.
Yeah.
When you're in low income, there's not really a place to move down to except for a mobile home park, maybe, which I have friends who do those really successfully too.
Yeah.
But you don't really lose a lot of people from Class C properties. If they're run really well, you have a nice place at under market rent. You don't have a lot of turnover. Stability is awesome. And if we can do it really well, I'm like, let's just become masters at this one thing. So that's almost exclusively what I buy. The studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, 500 to 1,000 square foot units. And then manage them so well where the tenants are like, why would I ever leave? Because I'd have to go to a worse place and pay more. If you can keep them better and cheaper and make money, you get paid to do a good thing for your community. I've loved it. And it has made a lot of millions of dollars. Which is also, that's not the only thing, but it is a thing. If you're trying to reach financial freedom, making a lot of money doing it is helpful.
No, yeah, for sure. I love that. I can tell you're passionate. And I think the one thing is your drive and consistency. Like you said, your consistency and wanting to have the system and process in place with getting this down really good and focusing on the one thing. Because I think too many people try to, like we said before with the goals, like focusing on too many things. I want to buy this type of property. Let's focus on this one niche this one thing and get really good at it and be the best at it. And I think that's really cool.
That's the most important piece of business advice I think I can get everyone. I got distracted and bought this Class A resort because it was seller financed, and I misidentified my niche as I'm a seller finance real estate guy.
Okay.
Running hospitality is not running entry-level housing. Those are unbelievably different with more employees, different taxes, massive distraction from my business. Even though the project worked, this year I'm going to try to find a buyer for it just to get it off
Like a hotel specifically? Or?
Yeah, it's a waterfront resort on Washington State's Hood Canal. So saltwater canal. Orcas actually run through it every few years.
Oh.
Foothills of the Olympic Mountains. So you come out of it's in the forest. There's a creek that runs through it. Individual cabins with hot tubs.
Yeah.
It is like the coolest thing ever. They hate it when I say this online, but I'll say it on this one. The adjacent property is owned by the Bill Gates estate. It's the neighbors we have rich neighbors. It's a really cool area.
Yeah.
One of the coolest areas in the country. And we bought it because it's awesome. And it has been the bane of my existence, keeping that thing profitable. It takes so much time. It takes so much of my wife's time. I'm like, oh, we bought ourselves a stupid job, like a not fun job. So had I just stayed in my lane, I'd be twice as far in multifamily. I wouldn't be distracted by the project. Seriously, everyone listening, I can say y'all now because I'm in Texas.
Yeah.
Y'all need to focus on the main thing and identify the main thing correctly. If you can do that and just master one thing, unbelievably more efficient than, oh, I'm going to be okay at a bunch of things. Like, just be the best at what you do and find something you love doing.
Yeah, for sure. That's a super good reminder. And people get into entrepreneurship. And like you said, a lot of people just create another job for themselves. So that's another part of the goal setting is like, what are you actually trying to accomplish?
Yeah. Serial entrepreneurs people talk about it highly. That is not a good thing. You should not be a serial entrepreneur. You should have, if you start multiple businesses, I have multiple. I have Multifamily Strategy, which talks about how to buy multifamily and teaches how to create a finance, builds community. Then we have Buying Multifamily, and then I own a property management company.
Okay.
Those all feed into each other pretty smoothly, I would say. Then I have I have a resort. I'm like, oh, that's dumb.
Then I have a resort.
Yeah, you could start companies and you can be an entrepreneur.
It's cool though, but see, it sounds and looks cool. What you're saying, I was taking away from that is like, yeah, it looks cool, like on paper. Ooh, Bill Gates, this and that, but like the reality of it is this.
Exactly, and it's not the main thing is not the shiny object. The main thing was, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
financial freedom, and my wife and I don't want a crappy job. So why would we buy ourselves a job running a hotel in a state that we don't want to live in? That was dumb.
Hold on. Yeah, so let's jump into the final round because you started, this might be part of your answer that you just answered, but
yeah.
The initial one was, what's the biggest mistake that you've ever made when it comes to your finances or business life?
The biggest mistake we made, and it was probably the resort. There's two problems with it. It makes an unbelievable amount of money as long as you go through the 8-year seller finance terms. It has a loan pay down built into it. That is, you basically end up with a free and clear $5 million resort by the end of the note. Absolutely incredible. If you want to sell out of it early, all of our value was in the amazing terms we negotiated. You lose a bunch of money if you sell out of it early. Dumb. I'm tied to a project for a long period of time, or I have to take a substantial loss because of deal structure. The way that we put it together was the wrong structure for the wrong project.
Okay.
It does make a lot of money. I am inclined at this point to say my other businesses are doing so much better. It is better to take a multi-six-figure loss and get the time back than it is to make a couple $1 million over the course of 8 years, which is hard to do. It's hard to sit down and say, man, I'm still at a point where a couple $1 million is still a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
That would make a huge difference. It's hard to sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice that because the things I'm doing, I enjoy more. There's more efficiencies and I'll make more, I believe, a lot more with the time back. So that's expensive. If the decision's, we're going to lose a couple $1 million of future value because we took a misadventure, that's a hard pill to swallow as a still fairly young entrepreneur. I started most of my companies in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
Right. Yeah. Like, we'll think about this one a little bit longer. and then
Yeah.
decide.
It's funny. I asked that question on my podcast too. I think it's the most important thing from entrepreneurs. If you can learn from their mistakes, you can move a lot faster. We call it the stupid tax on
Yeah.
Multifamily Strategy podcast.
Oh, I
But
love
it's like
it.
when you don't know, you don't know. There is a cost to being new. And that was my cost to being new as an entrepreneur, was buying something that was exciting because it made money, not because it made sense.
Yeah. So what's something that you learned that you wish you knew when you first started out in this business 3-4 years ago now?
I think the biggest thing that I learned, actually total pivot from that, biggest thing that I learned was money changes every single relationship. And it actually, I've seen it do both. It could be positive or negative. But if you introduce money into a relationship, it will change the relationship every single time, which is why I don't invest with friends and family. I actually invested with a friend on a deal. This was earlier in my career, someone who was actually in my wedding. So, like a close friend.
Yeah.
We'd known each other for 20 years. We bought this deal together, and they did none of their roles. I tripled the money for the like we put in 50,000, we sold it at $350,000 profit. We had to sell the company because they were causing so many problems. They then tried to sue me for all the months that the property was vacant while we were renovating. He said, because I wasn't working, it's your fault that I didn't make money from a unrenovated unit. It was ridiculous, but it ruined one of my closest friendships. I would never invest with friends and family based on just that experience alone. But I've had partners who have been awesome. And then I find out a year later, like, I'm disappointed. I'm like, but you've made a ton of money. They're like, I wanted to be more active in this LLC. I'm like, well, we can't have everyone in the driver's seat. So the lessons I've learned is that people are variables, just like variable rate debt. And I talked early on this, why I don't do variable rate debt. I hate variables in financial freedom. I like my money to be stupid simple. Like, I want it to just do the same thing every month.
Yeah.
Of course, that never happens in business, but you limit it as much as you can. The more people you put in, the more capital partners you have. People praise the OPM thing online and go just use other people's money.
Yeah.
We do that on deals. I have an option to buy out every single partner on every single LLC, except for one or two strategic partners who I've worked with for a long time. If I raise money, I'm raising money for a fixed period of time. You're a partner on the deal, and I have an option to buy you out within X time for X price. Fix the variables, have a way to get out of relationships with people. That's how I treat those. But oh my gosh, I'm way over answering the question.
No, that's super smart though. Yeah.
The pain and stress with other people get emotional. Like that thing with the partner who I was friends with. It was like emotionally really difficult to be like, why am I doing all the work and hitting all the metrics and making him a ton of money, and he's upset with me? That is wild. Being right has nothing to do at all with winning a legal dispute. Having more tolerance for spending money is how you win disputes in business.
Yeah.
So going through that process, it's okay. Who you work with and how you work with them and your structures for involving other people in your business. I do believe you need people to scale. The solopreneur thing, I'm not a fan of. It's hard. It's limiting. I have friends who've loved it. It's not for me. My vision for my companies is larger than stuff I could do myself. But oh my gosh, the people that you let on the bus is so important. And I think every entrepreneur that I've ever met gets burned at some point by people. They're a variable. Treat them with respect, but also recognize everyone you bring into your universe, they may or may not be worth it. It is a variable, and there will be some cost at some point because it's just someone who's not you in your business.
Yep. Yeah, it's like that over communication and but yeah, it's hard because you just never know. Multiple things have happened in a previous business for me too, with like friends and people. Same thing, going to court and getting it's just, oh my God.
It's not fun. And I opted to settle instead of be right. I spent enough money where I was like, you know what? I was informed that his dad was going to bankroll him no matter what. So I was like, oh, okay. He in mediation, he stated, he was like, my only goal is to cause as much financial damage as possible. I'm like, this sounds like a losing battle. That was the only goal.
But money shows you who people really are, right? Like what you were saying earlier too. That is like a Dave Ramsey quote. It's like the more money like shows people who the foundation of who they really are. And sometimes that
And it is funny. This has been my experience. And I know I always overtalk, so at some point you'll cut me off. But my experience has been like with money is I've had no money. Like I've had homeless, no money.
Yeah.
And my friends who have been there versus my friends who've always had some money, I have a little bit of a detachment from it where I don't feel as much change when I have money as when I don't. And I also have more tolerance for like when I started, like I spent all of my money on those 2 duplexes. When I bought my first 38 plex seller finance for $2 million, I had $5,641 in my bank account. Like I was basically broke.
Oh.
Money doesn't bother me as much as I see it bother other people. So there is a little bit of know who you are too. Because
Yeah.
some people are very sensitive about money. And if you partner with those people, they get like exponentially weirder than some other people. It's just something to note. Like people who are weird about money, my friends who drive nice cars, I've noticed they're also people who are harder to partner with who are weirder about money. The people who are like, I don't really need stuff. They tend to be the people who are also less stressed about money.
Yeah.
You call them, hey, the account's empty. Oh, okay, we'll figure it out. Hey, we're flush with cash. Oh, good. Like I like working with those people. It's money shouldn't be stressful. Money comes and goes. And if you're roughly the same person with or without money,
Yeah.
you're probably a really great person to work with.
Yeah. No, it's like that emotional side of money, like you're saying, like having that healthier relationship, not being overly dramatic and not being too relaxed, I guess, or not caring at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, super important. So 2 more questions left. Do you have any tips or tricks for you would recommend to someone who's just getting started, wants to do multifamily, and this is something that's interesting to them?
If you want to get into multifamily, this is the thing that someone needed to tell me. If you want to be an investor, you have to invest in a piece of real estate. That does not mean get your real estate license. It doesn't mean work for the CoStar Group or any other real estate company. It doesn't mean become a property manager. I think we have this programming to go from first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, go to high school, maybe go to college, get a job, get experience, work your way up a company. Like everything we do, we're trained to add steps.
Yeah.
If you want to be an entrepreneur in general, go do the thing. Don't read a million books and join 7 mentorships and take 3 classes and get a job in your field to learn the skill. Learn the skills by doing. If you want to be an investor, go buy an investment property. I did all of the things in reverse order. I saved, I worked for multiple companies, I got my broker's license, and then I used none of it. And again, financial freedom for me was like 11 months from when I stopped doing all those things. And I'm like, I'm just going to do the thing. I'm not saying you're going to get rich that fast. A lot of things went right, and the 8 years I'd put in did help.
Yeah,
But
for
you
sure.
could easily do what I did in 8 years plus 11 months. You could just do in 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
by just doing the thing. So cut out time. If you want to be an investor, invest. If you want to be an entrepreneur, start the business.
Okay. Great advice. Do you have any favorite business, investing, or real estate related books or podcasts or both?
Oh boy. Books. I just unpacked all of them too, so I can look over there for my favorites. Sales skills are really important. Just getting people aligned with your vision as a business operator is super important. Just being respectful and communicator. One of the best books I've ever read on it, actually, Jordan Belfort wrote, the guy in the Wolf of Wall Street. He wrote a book called Way of the Wolf, Straight Line Selling. You have to listen to an audiobook. It talks about tonality, and it's impossible, at least for me, I could not read about tonality. That didn't work.
Yeah.
But when you listen to him use tonality while reading the book, it's like, oh, this clicks. That one specifically on audiobook has helped me be a better communicator with people like no other. Fantastic book. And then Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss is also a lot of people fall back to that book. It's very popular. He used to be a lead FBI negotiator for like hostage negotiator. His actual negotiation skills, I got so much on how I present deals and how I pitch off of that book. So 2 totally not real estate books,
Yeah.
both sales related, actually have been the 2 most valuable things that I think I have in my entire arsenal.
That's the second time I've heard I've had Never Split the Difference on my list for a while, but 2 times, 2 days in a row that I've heard that. I'm like, okay, that's a sign I need to listen to that book next, or
Yeah, also recommend on audiobook, not because you need to have it on audiobook, but because Chris Voss narrates it and he has an awesome voice. Like he's really great. The author has an epic voice to listen to. I think that it actually landed as like particularly well recorded audiobooks go. That book is easy to listen to.
I love that.
If you've ever heard Jordan Belfort speak, he has an abrasive voice.
Yeah.
But it's really important to the book. I'm a physical book guy. I actually prefer reading, but both of those I think are superior on audio than actually reading the book.
Sweet. Okay. Those are definitely on my list now, sooner than later. And I think the sales side, yeah, like you're saying, and not being sales is the hardest thing for most people. And just getting that down is super crucial, no matter what you're doing, I think, in life.
If you can get people behind your vision, it's so much easier. Like it's not the sales skills of putting together the deal, even though that plays a role, but I think that's the easy part. It was the sales skills of, can I book a meeting with someone? That has gone astronomically farther than trying to put together business opportunities. And then building teams, building my property management company, inspiring excellent people to get on board with companies, especially when it's a startup. It's guess what? We can barely afford to pay you guys anything, but here's the vision. It's hard to say, hey, would you leave your profession and join me on this mission for very little pay until I can afford to pay you more? Like that's a hard sell.
Yeah.
And to really have a vision, be like, this is why I think this is what it's going to look like. And this is the vision. And this is where I want to go. If you can align other people to your mission, it is so much more fun to do business. And sure, you go farther, but it's more enjoyable to have the right team. And you can't do that if you just can't present a vision. So yeah, the sales skills, I think, trump even marketing skills in business. I think it's the most important thing.
Yep, exactly. Where can people find more information about you? Like, where can they see your website, social media?
YouTube on Multifamily Strategy, website multifamilystrategy.com, Instagram. And by the way, I still answer every single message on Instagram. That is me personally. Instagram at Christian Osgood. Either one. So you guys have questions, reach out to me there. If you want to just see like, how did I structure deals? I think I have 2,000 videos on YouTube.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. And I only have, when I said I have 100,000 followers, I have the plaque here. If you only have 100,000 followers, you've done 2,000 videos. That is actually not very good. So that is a lot of effort, but I have everything documented there. My first video is me sitting in a basement with my buddy Cody with 4 units saying, we're going to get to 100 units. I literally documented before I'd actually done anything. I have the entire journey there. It's a great place. It's completely free. I love sharing on YouTube. If there's one place you went, I would hop to YouTube and check that out, because anything that I have done, I guarantee you I've done 5 videos on.
That's cool. And you can see the whole story. I love that. And I think it's a good thing that I love seeing when people are just keep showing up and consistent, no matter, I don't even know how many videos I put out on social media channels, but of course you're like, okay, I put out this many videos, I should have this many results, but it's like your ability to keep going and your goal, your mission. And that's super important too. So I love that. And I can't wait for people to check out the YouTube channel.
No,
go follow along.
Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Yeah, of course. And you have your own podcast that you said too, right? I'm gonna mention that.
Multifamily Strategy podcast. Every episode shows up on the YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. And then anywhere you download podcast, Multifamily Strategy.
Great. Thanks, Christian, so much for joining us today. Excited to get this out there to our audience and share with them all your insights, which is super impressive from the last 3 years. But like you said, it was that 11 years of doing this consistently. So I love it. Thanks to our listeners, and thanks so much for joining the Average Joe Finances podcast. Make sure you go leave us a 5-star review and let us know what you liked today about today's episode. And we'll see you later from Lake Tahoe and Texas, y'all. Bye. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. Greatly appreciate you being here with me today on the Average Joe Finances podcast. If you haven't done so yet, make this the episode that you go leave us a 5-star rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Have an outstanding day.